Rock history is filled with unforgettable music, larger-than-life personalities, and yes, breakups that changed everything. Behind the timeless songs and sold-out concerts were friendships torn apart, creative partnerships destroyed, and personal struggles that became too heavy to carry. These breakups remind us that even the greatest triumphs in rock and roll often come at the highest personal cost. Today, we're counting down 10 of the most shocking, heartbreaking, and unforgettable band breakups that left fans stunned, dreams shattered, and music history forever changed. 1. Nirvana. A tragedy in the spotlight. Nirvana didn't just break up, they imploded in the most tragic way imaginable. Kurt Cobain, the voice of a generation, was already fighting an impossible battle with addiction and depression. Rehab only lasted a few days. Intervention attempts failed. His wife, Courtney Love, added her own chaos to his struggles, and his bandmates Dave Grohl and Chris Novoselic could only watch helplessly as he spiraled deeper. By 1994, Cobain was increasingly using heroin, both as a symptom and a cause of his desperation. He felt like a fraud, trapped in the body of a punk rocker turned reluctant pop star. In his suicide note, addressed to his imaginary childhood friend, he wrote those haunting words, "It's better to burn out than to fade away." On April 1994, Kurt took his own life. The band that had given teenagers a voice and transformed Seattle into a cultural epicenter was gone forever. Nirvana wasn't just controversial, it was catastrophic. 2. The Beatles, Legal Wars and Broken Trust. By 1969, the Beatles were no longer the happy Fab Four. Their creative differences had evolved into something far more destructive, a complete breakdown of friendship, trust, and shared vision. Paul McCartney wanted his father-in-law's firm to manage the band, while John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr backed the notorious manager Alan Klein. Every major decision saw Paul being outvoted. Later, Paul explained, "I had to fight the other three to protect the Beatles." The final blow didn't come from Yoko Ono, despite decades of blame. It came from years of financial disputes, creative conflicts, and legal warfare that destroyed whatever brotherhood remained. In 1970, Paul filed suit against his bandmates to dissolve the partnership. John later admitted, "He hasn't contacted us since he said we were breaking up. The band that had once united the world could no longer even speak to each other." The Beatles, who had sung about unity and love, ended in bitter financial war. 3. The Smiths. Morrissey versus Marr from Manchester. The Smiths were Britain's greatest export since the Industrial Revolution. Johnny Marr's jangly guitar genius, wrapped around Morrissey's poetic wordplay, created the ultimate indie rock template. But by 1987, their partnership had become a psychological prison. Marr later explained, "We had to do it. We had to fire the man whose voice defined our sound." He was referring to Morrissey's controlling nature, refusal to share songwriting credits, and erratic decisions that drained the band's spirit. When Marr walked away without warning, leaving only a note that read, "I can't work with Morrissey anymore," the Smiths were finished. Lawsuits over royalties followed, with former Rhythm section Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce suing for equal pay. Despite decades of reunion rumors, the schism haunted them, never allowing reconciliation. 4. Black Sabbath. From invention to implosion, Black Sabbath invented heavy metal, but they also became victims of their own mythology. By 1979, Ozzy Osbourne had crossed the line from rock star excess into genuine danger. Missing shows, forgetting lyrics, and arriving too intoxicated to perform became routine. Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward made the brutal decision to fire Ozzy. As Iommi later explained, "We had to do it. It was either save their creation or watch it self-destruct." They replaced him with powerhouse vocalist Ronnie James Dio, who brought an operatic drama to their sound. Fans never fully accepted the change, but albums like Heaven and Hell proved Sabbath could evolve. Still, the legend of Ozzy and his darkness remained unmatched. 5. Fleetwood Mac. A romantic apocalypse, few bands combined brilliance and disaster quite like Fleetwood Mac. Their empire was built on affairs, divorces, and cocaine-fueled chaos. For 43 years, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham shared a toxic creative partnership that defined the band's sound. Insiders described their final confrontation as a musical divorce. Just weeks before a major tour in 2018, Buckingham, the band's primary creative force, was fired. Stevie reportedly told others, "It's him or me." They had survived every scandal imaginable, but even their unmatched musical chemistry couldn't withstand their personal battles. Fleetwood Mac's story remains one of music's greatest examples of love, destruction, and timeless art. 6. The Stone Roses, the lost promise of Manchester. Stone Roses were hailed as the future of British music after their pure masterpiece debut album in 1989. They spent 5 years fighting a nightmarish legal battle with their record label, finally re-emerging in 1994 with Second Coming. But the chemistry was gone. John Squire's guitar fireworks couldn't mask the absence of their original magic. Ian Brown's voice sounded detached. By 1996, Squire simply walked away, leaving a note with no explanation. The Stone Roses didn't just break up, they evaporated into myth, their potential poisoned by perfectionism and delays. 7. The Replacements, self-destruction by design. The Replacements were Minneapolis punk poets who combined sleeve-hard songwriting with legendary amounts of alcohol. By the mid-'80s, Paul Westerberg had taken them from hardcore roots into critical darlings with major label potential. But success felt like betrayal. Their chaotic performances became infamous, sometimes brilliant, often disastrous. Bob Stinson, their lead guitarist, was fired in 1986 for drinking too much, only to be replaced by a more polished sound that alienated fans. By 1991, the band limped along, alienating longtime supporters while failing to capture new ones. The Replacements eventually collapsed, leaving behind a legacy of beautiful failure. 8. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. And self-destruction by 1991, Guns N' Roses were the most dangerous band on the planet. Their album Appetite for Destruction made them legends, but their internal chaos was even greater. Izzy Stradlin walked away first. Then Slash and Duff McKagan discovered they were essentially employees in their own band, as Axl Rose quietly orchestrated a hostile takeover. Securing legal ownership of the name, Slash later admitted, "I can't work with him anymore." Axl continued to tour with replacement members, while the classic lineup dissolved into history. Their Illusion albums proved they could evolve beyond their lazy origins, but the betrayal cut too deep. 9. Creedence Clearwater Revival, Creative Dictatorship from 1968 to 1971. Creedence Clearwater Revival was unstoppable. John Fogerty wrote every hit, sang every song, and controlled every creative decision. Bad Moon Rising, Proud Mary, and Fortunate Son became instant classics, but his dictatorship destroyed the band. Bandmates Stu Cook, Doug Clifford, and even his own brother Tom Fogerty grew restless at being treated like hired musicians. When they finally demanded equal contribution, John reluctantly agreed, resulting in the disastrous 1972 album Mardi Gras. The band collapsed, leaving behind one of the greatest catalogs in American rock, destroyed by creative control. 10. Oasis, the Gallagher Brothers. War by 2009, Oasis had conquered the world twice over. Liam and Noel Gallagher had built an empire on soaring melodies, working-class swagger, and Britpop dominance. But their legendary feuding became toxic beyond repair. According to witnesses, just minutes before a Paris festival performance, Liam hurled a plum at Noel's head, then wielded an axe-like guitar as a weapon. That was the breaking point. Within hours, Noel released a statement. "I simply could not go on working with Liam for a day longer." Their breakup shattered millions of hearts worldwide. Oasis had sung about unity, only to collapse in screams, threats, and brotherly war.
Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.